Hello to all my beautiful, beautiful, wonderful purple roses. This is Jessica with the Purple Rose Movement. I want you to know that you are royalty. You are blossoming and growing. You are exactly who God created you to be, whether you are growing and learning things or you are um, transitioning to just places that you didn't even know God would take you. Just remember you are royalty. And speaking of royalty, I wanted to talk to you about uh, Daniel chapter 6. We are going to talk about King, let's see, this is King Darius. And there were so many kings um, that reigned during that time, the time of Daniel in the book of Daniel. But today I'm going to talk about King Darius, and there are a lot of kings and queens out there. You being one of them, and also you can find that in yourself as far as being a king or a queen. And you can also find Daniel within you, depending on the situation and where God has placed you. But let's talk about how um, Daniel was thrown into the lion's den. And I want to shift a little bit from what people really talk about when they speak about Daniel in the lion's den. We hear about how God sent the angels to shut the mouths of the lions and Daniel wasn't harmed, which is a very powerful story. Um, but I wanted to focus on King Darius. And reason being is because there is redemption for all who have fallen short, who have made other things and people and worldly things their God, other than knowing who the Most High God is. And it really shows in everyone's actions. The actions are key. Your actions, and when you are under pressure or when you have authority over people, and how you decide to move and the decisions you decide to make will show really where your heart is, right? Uh, so, as far as King Daniel, or Daniel, I'm sorry, King Darius, like Darius Daniel, I'm gonna have to be mindful of that. But as far as King Darius, he was in a situation where there was some talk of some things that the other administrators wanted to take place. And a little backstory of that is the other administrators um, that were on Daniel's level didn't like Daniel, and they wanted to find a way to have him convicted and destroyed, thrown out, whatever, just destroy who he was and his character. And so they did that by asking the king to create a new law which required people not to serve God or pray to any other God but to the king and the king's gods, little gods, which is the, let's see, and I'm looking at my notes, so bear with me. So it was for 30 days. They wanted to agree and enforce anyone who prays to any god or human within the next 30 days that was not the king shall be thrown in the lion's den. That's how that happened. And they knew that that would be the only way that they could accuse Daniel of anything, because Daniel was noble and Daniel was a trustworthy, he was not corrupt. He was a child of the Most High God. So moving forward, Daniel was caught praying, and they brought him to the king. And the king was very troubled because even though he listened to these people and allowed them to talk him into creating a rule or setting Daniel up unknowingly, he had to carry through it because he made the rule and he was the king. Now, one thing I noticed about this is that even though Darius was king, Darius was not acting like king at that moment. Darius was really being manipulated. And true kings and queens of the Most High God, they are not manipulated. They're not controlled by any other external. They are not the external and other people around them do not control or create their outcomes. They stand for God and they do not waver. So just keep that in mind as you move forward. But moving back into the story, Darius had to make the decision to throw Daniel in the lion's den. It was absolutely sealed, and he was troubled of that, but he did make the decision to go with the flow of what the other administrators said. He went with the flow of evil counsel. So the next day, um, King Darius went to the den and he yelled out for Daniel, and he was surprised but very happy to know that Daniel was still alive. Daniel let him know that God sent angels to shut the mouths of the lions. So even because Daniel was in the lion's den, meant absolutely nothing. Yes, there was a trap set for Daniel. Yes, the people that were close to Daniel, which at this point was the king and the administrators, or within council, or had to be around him, they were used to conspire something against Daniel to put him in that situation. However, even in the den, Daniel was still protected. Okay. With that being said, um, Darius was very excited about it and he released uh, Daniel out of the lion's den. And during this time, and I wanted to go like kind of go down the line of what the king experienced at that time. The king experienced um, through idolatry, opening up a door of un- following evil counsel. The king was not connected to God, even though the king knew Daniel served a certain God and Daniel had favor. And they pretty much left Daniel alone and knew who he was because of this. The king did, but he was not, the king himself was not connected to God. Just because you have people that love the Lord around you, that pray for you, if you are not praying, if you're not connected to the Most High God, if you're not seeking God's counsel and you're seeking the counsel of others, even people that seem like they are wise and people of God, they're people. So sometimes they fall short and they can lead you in the wrong direction. And sometimes they walk in their gifts and their prophecies, and they are absolutely 100% on point and correct. So that should tell you to remain focused on the relationship that you have with the Most High God and make sure your actions and the things that you're doing are being carried out correctly according to God's words. Okay, you can hear from God, and if you feel like you cannot hear from God, then you probably just need to be still and stop doing certain things so that you can be more connected to God. So that was the first thing. Through idolatry, the king experienced open doors of being manipulated by the enemy, the devil. Um, The second thing was the king was easily persuaded by evil counsel. Once again, going back to not having a relationship with God, you will be persuaded by a manipulative source. And that source will probably be someone that can do things for you or make you um, accommodate the worldly things that you have in place. So be mindful of that. Just because they do what you ask them to do, just because they can carry out the things that you ask them to do because you've been put in a position of authority over them does not always mean that they have your best interest, and vice versa. If somebody is over you, it does not mean that they have your best interest. Who do they serve, and what are their actions looking like? What are the words coming out their mouth? What is the spirit behind what they're doing? The third thing is condemnation. He experienced condemnation because of his bad decisions. David was thrown into the lion's den, and because of his that bad decisions of make listening to ungodly counsel, that whole law was created, and they knew he didn't really think about it, but they knew that that Daniel was going to be praying to the Most High, and because of that, because of the king's lack of connection with God, he didn't get that. And he made that bad decision of making that law, which put Daniel in a position to be thrown in the lion's den. So just pay attention to when people try to push you towards making a decision. Um, they make comments about you or people around you to make you look at other people like they're a bad person. Look at what that person is actually doing. Look at the heart of that person and ask God for guidance. Do not just be careful of who you're listening to and look at their actions before listening to them. Another thing King Daniel experienced was witnessing the miracle, the lions' mouths being shut. This part was the shifting point and the lesson that King Darius, um, he experienced a lesson there. Now, in my observation and in my opinion, this would be the turning point where you separate the king, a true king, from just the title. So, yes, he had the position of authority, but to really be a true king, to really be able to lead and not lead your kingdom, whether it be your wife, your business, your family, into um, destruction, you have to truly be connected to God. And when God shows you and you witness, even if you have made a bad decision as a king or as a ruler or as somebody in authority, when you've made that decision to do something wrong, there is an opportunity of redemption through God correcting you and showing you how powerful He is. Do not disregard that. Um, so there was a lesson there, and Darius had a decision to make. He could have said, "Oh, this is crazy," whatever. Or he could have, and he did say, "You know what? Wow," and we know that Darius had a heart anyway because he was troubled about even putting Daniel in the lion's den. So he knew who God was, or he knew of God, and he didn't deny that, but he was not connected to God to where he could avoid this situation from happening. Um, Another thing was the King Darius experienced the fear of God. He understood who God really was at that time. And then from there, when he made that turning point, when he saw that lesson in the miracle take place, he decided to take hold of that fear of God and not only um, know who God was, but also decree it over everyone else in the kingdom and make it known who God was. Now, here's the thing: the devil will take care of himself. And what I mean by that is in the story, um, the evil council, the administrators who conspired against Daniel, they were thrown in the lion's den with their family. They were thrown in the lion's den with their family. So we do not need when you're thinking about it on this perspective, as far as Daniel, there's nothing that needs to be done where um, you don't have to find ways to get back at anybody. Continue to do what God has told you to do. Now, they have um, they were thrown in the lion's den, and they put themselves in that position by listening to evil counsel. Um, and that was the decision of Darius. I'm not saying be King Darius and throw people into the lion's den in today's sense, but I am saying that there is consequences for every action and every attempt on the lives of God's people. There is consequences. There are lessons, and you need to learn, or you will be reprimanded and dealt with. Um, Now, after the removal of evil counsel, um, David was uplifted. So um, it states that the king, uh, he wrote to all nations and people of every language in all the earth. And it says, may you prosper greatly. I issue a decree that in every part of my kingdom, people must fear and reverence the God of Daniel. He knew. After that, he knew. And he decided to make that known. He didn't keep quiet, he made it known. He knew, and he received it. Receive the lessons that are from God, especially if you're in authority over people, because the people under you need you to do the right thing and need you to listen and be mindful so that you can affect the entire kingdom, whether that be your family, again, a business, your husband, your wife. If you're a husband, would be your wife and children. Um, and It reads, I'm just kind of skipping around. It At the end it says, he rescues and saves. He performs signs and wonders in the heavens and on earth. He has rescued Daniel from the power of the lions. And so Daniel prospered during the reign of Darius and the reign of Cyrus the Persian. Wow. Because it all started with Daniel praying, really. Just think about it. And even though he received conviction from praying, at the end of the day, God lifted him up. Um, and as far as Darius was concerned, he learned a lesson. He not only learned that lesson, but he told everyone at the end of what and who the true God is and how he operates and what he does. He shared that miracle and that experience with everyone else. He did not try to stand behind his initial decision, which was manipulated by the enemy, but he said, "You know what? I was wrong, and actually, I kind of knew it, but." I decided to go through it because this is what I said, and here are the consequences. Here's what happened, and here's how we're going to move forward. So, the in conclusion, what I'm trying to say for everyone that is in a position of power, in a position of authority, um, the ones that God has granted the opportunities to be the leaders, make sure that you don't have just godly counsel around you, that one or two people, but you are actually attached and have that relationship with God to where you can talk to Him. So when people like the other administrators come to you with the fake talk, the accusations of others, that you're able to listen and you are able to discern what God truly is telling you and confirming in your spirit. Because if you're disconnected, you will have no confirmation and you will make some really bad decisions based off of what someone else said because they are plotting against someone or trying to deframe someone's character. Um, So I pray that what I have spoken and the words that God has given me to speak to you resonates with you, and that you continue to grow and be the blossom rose that you are. For you, Daniels, that are in the position of obeying authority, but knowing that God is the key and that you remain in alignment with God, just know that God hears you. And I know that it's hard when you are in a position where people try to make you look a specific way that you're not. People try to accuse you of things or set you up. People try to make you look like the bad parent, the bad person, the bad um, whatever. Because you're not perfect, they're not perfect either. And if you seek the Lord and you take every opportunity that God is giving you and you do the best of your ability, you will understand that God is going to shut the mouths of every lion that you encounter, and that anyone that has tried to transpire against you, we don't wish bad on anybody. We don't pray that anybody pray over anybody's downfall or anything like that, but they will be corrected to the point where they have a decision to make whether they are going to continue to try to harm you, which means if you're protected by God, you will not be harmed. It will, all of that, they will reap the fruits of all of their actions. So God will give them an opportunity to align their actions more with God, to just leave you alone, or to be corrected and humbled. So that is that. I'm not going to go into the correction and the humbling and speaking about others, because we've all fallen short of the glory of God. And we've all done some things that are in our flesh. So just remain in the Lord, and He will definitely see you through. He will make sure you are protected. You have to decree it and declare it over your life and understand who you are. So continue to grow, continue to blossom, be the royal rose that you are, and know that you are royalty, because true royalty is knowing how to move in your position as God elevates you and steward what he has. You are royalty. You are a child of God. So be blessed. Have a wonderful day. And I pray that all is well, and continue to blossom and be royal. Bye.